Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Software Testing. My name is Knott and I'm happy that you're here today. In today's video I'd like to talk about the following topic: 10 mobile app testing mistakes to avoid. And this is actually a nice topic because I've seen over the course of the years so many mistakes being made by people, by software development teams, that leads to really nasty critical bugs on production app systems. So in order to avoid them, I created down this list of 10 bug or mistakes that you should avoid in order to get a really high quality app in front of the users. So let's take a look. Before we dive into the 10 mistakes that you should avoid, I would highlight out that this is my view or my view of things, the 10 top mistakes that I've seen in the past, as I already said, that lead to many critical issues on production systems and that you should avoid in your team and in your company to have happy customers. So let's take a look. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 1 is that you don't listen to your customers. And this is actually one of the most critical ones, I would say, because let's take a look at this example. This looks quite good, right? This is an example from the Google Play Store where you can see that more than 40 million users gave a 5-star rating. So all in all, you think it's good. Also, the overall rating is 4.1 stars, which assumes it's a good app. It's doing its job. It's a good way. It's a good app. However, if you look down at the 1-star ratings, it's still 9 million users that don't like the app at all. And 9 million users is like a big portion of things, right? Of your customer target base. So this is also something that you should take a look. Not only look at the bright side, but also rather look on the downside. What are users complaining about? And then listen to them and see what they have to complain. Here's another example. I'm reading it out now. I'm hoping since years that the bugs get fixed, but they don't. The app crashes after a clear start instantly, so I have to use the website instead of the app and keep the app only for notifications. This is rather a nasty bug. However, it's not really helpful because it indicates just an app crash, and this, especially on the Android side, can be really difficult to track down because you have so many devices on the market, so it's really hard to find out what's going on here. However, you can use the reply function in the Google Play Store, pinpointing the user saying, hey, please send us a message, what kind of device are you using, and so forth, or in what scenario is the app crashing. On the other side, the Google Play Store offers also device information. This might also help you to find out the root cause of the issue. And as I already said, you can reply here saying, hey, Mr. Müller, thanks for the feedback. Please send us more detailed email about the problem. Send it to. This is actually pretty helpful because then the user feels that he's like welcomed, he's being listened to, somebody's actively listening to him, and he feels welcome and appreciated. Here's another one. I have the Note 8 on Verizon. The latest update has froze my phone pretty bad. So I hide it jumps right back. It's bad enough. And in the vids, it's spammed out now. There's even more information about here. This is actually pretty helpful information because we already know which device the user is using, on which mobile network the user is using the app, and he's also providing some of the information that can help you out to find the root cause. So what you should do is, you should check the app stores for feedback and reply, because this is really useful channel in order to communicate with your users. Please use it. Check also the error reports from your users. As you have seen in the report, in the review, or in the rating, the user explained in detail what kind of device he has, what kind of network he was using, and what was the actual situation. This is useful information, and you should use this information to get a better app out there. On the other side, what you can also do is you can invite your customers to your office and ask them for feedback. Yeah, you can invite them regularly, even remote, via any kind of tools that is out there. You can ask them for feedback. You can show them prototypes or even other things that you would like to test in front of a user before you really go to your target customers. Or in the long run, you can even establish a beta testing community, and you can invite the users to become a beta tester, to give even further feedback down the road before you hit the really target customers. It's helpful. Let's take a look at mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is if you don't follow the platform UI and UX guidelines. If we look at the two main platforms, iOS and Android, they offer really good documentation in terms of UI guidelines, UX guidelines. And everyone in the team, I mean especially designers and interaction designers, should know all those platform guidelines. And you should follow them, because this is what users expect. Users expect an app to behave exactly like the ecosystem around them. They expect that the app looks like these native elements, for example, and they expect also the right behavior on certain inputs like gestures, double tap, or the back button functionality. So you have to follow them. Otherwise, you will make your customers unhappy. Yeah, you should know them. Everyone in the team knows them. It's not only helpful if a designer or interaction designer knows the platform guidelines, but it's also important knowledge if developers and also you as a mobile tester are aware of this information, because it might help you to talk about potential design issues or to put about potential issues that the user has found on the production system. Make sure the team is aware of it. This is something you should do. What you can also do, and what I've always done in the past, is you can create a mind map with the most important elements for your app. Of course, not your app is not using all the design elements, hopefully not. And you can make a mind map. You can narrow down the things that are in the design guidelines that help your team to improve things and to focus on the most important parts. And of course, you should check them from time to time, because Google and Apple are releasing on a yearly basis on their big keynotes, usually updates on the operating system, and there might be changes coming also to the design guidelines. And there are some follow-up links that I also put down in the video description for follow-up reading. Mistake number 3. Don't test against the mobile-specific use cases. What's meant by that? So it's exactly meant like that. You should not test with your keyboard or with your mouse. You should really test on the device with the mobile-specific use cases. And here's an example. The gestures. If you look at your mobile device, it has like a touch screen. And on that screen you can use multiple inputs with your fingers, even a single tap, a double tap, a pinch to zoom, a rotation, and stuff like that, swiping to left to right. And these gestures is something that you should use, because this is also the input device, so to say, what your users are using in the end. Your users will not use a keyboard on your system, on your app. They will also not use a mouse in order to navigate through your app, because this is usually stuff that happens when you only use simulators or emulators, that you navigate the app with your keyboard or with your mouse. But that's not the environment the user will use your app. So please keep this in mind and test against those specific inputs. It's also sometimes fun if you use multiple fingers and tap really fast on your screen and see what's going to happen. So that's important. Also sensors. You should test against the different sensors that we have in the mobile devices. So we have the gyroscope, we have the acceleration sensor, magnetic sensors, proximity sensors, and all kinds of sensors are packed in a mobile device these days. And if your app is using one of these sensors, you should also make use of them while you're testing your app. So for example, if you use the gyroscope to put the device in a specific position, this is something you should do while testing. Or for example, you can do landscape portrait rotation, do it multiple times to see how the app is behaving, if the UI is completely redrawn in a correct way, and if the data is in the same state as it was before in the previous design layout. There are more scenarios that you should take a look at. So for example, you should do the update testing, you should check for battery drainage, interruptions, log files, and performance. And if maybe you have seen already my video about the mobile testing cheat sheet. If not, I'll make the video link up here, so you can follow up the things to keep them in mind and to remind yourself and your teammates what are the mobile specific use cases that you should have in mind. Mistake number 4. Try to test everything. Yes, test all the things. This is not usually a mistake that you can do on mobile apps, but also on other software products. Software testers, especially if you're like a junior software testers that have not enough experience in their previous career, they try to test as much as possible. They try to test everything, right? Let's test all the things. And this is not possible, right? We all know that we cannot do everything before release. We cannot test everything, and we will also not be sure that there is no bug in the app. So don't try to test everything. Rather than focus on the important stuff, right? That's the most important thing that I would like to highlight here. Test the main parts, test the critical functions, and test on most used devices. This is especially important because with that you can narrow down the effort on your daily testing activities to get a faster release out there and with a higher quality. Mistake number 5. Not performing in the wild testing. Again, the same picture, and you can already guess what's coming next. Yes, the don't do it sign. Because you should really go out of the office and test your app in the user environment where the app belongs to. So, for example, these might be environments where you should test your app. For example, on a beach. To test in different lighting conditions. So, for example, in bright sunlight, is the app still readable? Can the interaction elements be seen by a user? In crowded places, for example, on a train. So maybe you have an app that is providing the latest train information, like scheduling departure arrival times. Then you, of course, should go outside into the central station, railway station, and test there, because that's the environment where users will use your app. At the same time, you should go, for example, in the city center, where you have like big buildings surrounded by you might have issues with the GPS connection if you have to make use of this sensor, for example, or the mobile network is not good enough in really crowded places. This could have an impact on, for example, the network speed. So, for example, if you're in an edge environment or in a really slow 3G or 4G environment, it can have an impact on your app because the requests and responses might take longer as you expect. And this is something that the app should also handle. And of course, if you're doing something, for example, like an outdoor activity app, you should test also the app while doing outdoor activities. Because also in this example on the slope, maybe you might have cold fingers or you have like cold temperatures. This has an impact to your device and to your app under test. And this is why you should not only test in the office, in a really stable Wi-Fi environment, but rather outside. Go outside, pack some devices in your backpack, and then travel around in the city and try to see how the app behaves and do some testing scenarios there. Yeah, this is already what I said. Go out and explore the nearby environment. Mistake number 6. Not looking behind the UI. Yeah, that's also something that I can only recommend for mobile apps, but it's also not something for mobile apps only, but also for every software product. What I mean with that is that you should take a look in the log files, for example. You should take at the log files on the log level, because there you get really useful information about errors, warnings, stack traces in when your app is crashing, for example, and so forth and so forth. So this is really something really valuable. So and you should make use of it. If you're not able to connect your mobile device to a computer or to an IDE, talk to your developer and maybe pair with them. Take a look at the log files together, especially before release. Do this with the release candidate, for example, to see if the whole communication is encrypted with your app under test, or with the release candidate and with the backend, so that there are not any sensible data sent to the backend in an unencrypted way. With that, I can also highlight and recommend you to do code reviews with your developers. So I recommend always that testers should be at least part of code reviews from time to time, if you have the time, of course, because it's time consuming. You should pair up with the developers to take a look maybe at the code, but also on the log level. You can use proxy tools such as Charles Proxy or Postman or any other tools out there to track the requests and responses, and also have this man in the middle thing. So you can install a certificate on your test device, and then you can intercept the traffic to see what kind of data is being sent. Is it a right one or is it a wrong one? And you can check the things, of course. And as I said, check the log file on the device, because it's really useful information. And if you not do it, you might miss some crashes that not occur in front of the user, but might have an impact on the data being operated or being transferred. So this is important to take a look at. Mistake number 7. Yeah, you do automation on the wrong layer, right? Let's take a quick look at the test pyramid. We all know the pyramid, hopefully. It's the foundation is usually unit testing. You have some integration tests, and at the top you have UI tests, and then some manual testing. But from my point of view, the test pyramid always looks different from project to project. It might be in a trophy, for example, you have like less unit tests, a big integration layer part, but a small unit level part, UI level part. It might also can be a flip pyramid, that you have like lots of UI tests but less unit tests. It really depends on your environment, on the app, and it's usually important that you talk with the developers, with your whole development team, on which layer you want to automate what. Because maybe you have already the management phrases. Let's do 100% code coverage, and let's automate everything, and all these phrases, which doesn't make any sense. So I use rather the test pyramid to start a discussion around the topic of automation, and then to find out what is really important to automate, and then it's really important to start simple, see if the test is beneficial for you as a team, gives you some spare time that you can use for exploratory testing, for example, to improve the app in a different way. I already mentioned some of those. Don't write test automation just to have test automation. Use the pyramid as a foundation to discussion. Not every app can be automated on every layer. Yes, this is also important, because I think that's depending on the app use case. That's something that you should keep in mind. For example, if you have an app that is maybe only available for, let's say, a half a year in the App Store, it might be not beneficial to invest like lots of time in automation, but rather do some code pairing, code reviews, have some static code analyzers before you submit the app, and then do some testing sessions, exploratory testing sessions, to see if the app has the right quality or not. And you should use multiple tools for the layers. There is no one single tool, so as I said here, there is no one silver bullet tool that you can use in order to automate on each layer. So take a look what's there for you and for your environment, and what makes sense for your team. That's the most important part here. Mistake number 8. Testing only on a single device. I mean, if you know that the mobile market is pretty fragmented, fragmentation is not only an Android only problem anymore. Also on the Apple side, you have now multiple iOS devices that gets the latest OS update, which is great, by the way. But on the other side, it also adds a lot of complexity for us as mobile testers, because we need to find out on what devices we should test, because testing only on a single device is just not enough. So what you can do is, first of all, you should know your customer, right? The mistake number 1. If you know your target customer, you already know the devices of your customer. So for example, you know that, let's say, the top 10 devices on Android are Samsung and Google Pixel devices, for example, and on iOS side or on Apple side, you know that you have only the iPhone 13 and 12 on the most used devices. In the second step, then you can take a look what kind of operating system versions they have installed, and then you can define, or you can create those test devices in your department, in your team, and then test on those devices. Pick some of them for your manual testing activities, or also for your automation activities, and test only against those devices, because then you will be sure that you are optimizing the app for the biggest amount of your customer target base. What you can also do, or what you should do, is you should group and prioritize the test devices according to the user base. There's like, for example, I also wrote a blog post on that topic. It's that you can group your devices into ABC groups. I just highlight them. Oh, there's a UI glitch, a bug found. So for example, you have group 1 with prior A. It has the high-end devices with the best hardware on amongst your users. You have Group B, we have mid-range devices. The software is a bit older than 1 year, for example, and Group C devices, yeah, it's like older phones that have like a small portion of in your target customer base that have not the highest priority in terms of testing. And then when you start your testing activities, you can, for example, pick 3 devices from each group, 3 from A, 3 from B, 3 from C, and then you test on all these 9 devices the different or new functionalities, and with that you can be sure that you have like a good coverage amongst your user base. However, depending on your customer user base, the amount of devices might be much bigger. Then you can think of using, for example, crowd providers or even cloud providers that offer you access to real devices via browser. But make sure or keep in mind that using the app via a browser is not the same behavior as when you use your hand and in your real environment. So mistake number 9, what is this? You are not performing update and installation testing. This sounds easy, but it's usually forgotten. And also myself, I forgot it from time to time to do an update test. So update test means that you take the already live app version on the app stores, on the Google Play Store, for example, and you have release candidate and you perform an update test. There's like a tool, or you can use ADB, for example, or on the iOS side, you can use Xcode to perform the update test. And then, for example, if your app has a login functionality, you make sure that you are logged in the app on the already existing app version. You can perform some actions, and then you perform the update. And then you can take a look what's going to happen. Is the user still logged in? Is the data the same way? Is the user on the same page? And so forth and so forth. Because this otherwise can lead to really nasty crashes. I've seen them in the past. I already once had the issue that we made a release late in the afternoon, which was a mistake by its own, but I forgot to do the update testing. The developers made a small mistake. We just shipped the app, luckily only to 10% of our users, and then I was on my way back home, was seeing the app is available on the Play Store. I went there, did the update, app was crashing. I was like, damn it. We found a bug, or we had an issue there with a database migration, and this was not found in the beginning or while testing, but it could have been prevented by doing the update testing. And this is then something that I could highly recommend you to do. It's something really easy to do. It's like a 5-minute job to do, but it's really helpful. Yeah, as I already said, once you do the update test, check for data inconsistency, check that the user is still logged in, and that no crashes happens after all. Mistake number 10, and that's the last one for this video today: security testing. I'm not a security expert at all, but you have to do security testing and security audits with your app under test and with your whole application. So not only the app, but maybe also the API and the backend, because security is key these days. If you have a security issue in your environment, it's really highly that you will lose your customers because they lose trust. You have like a reputation issue and so forth, and it can be critical to your business or to the whole company. And since security is a really broad and complicated field, I highly recommend you to get some help from experts, like from security companies out there. They're offering audits from time to time that you can do, or do it before a big app update. For example, you would do a security audit to just take a look what's going to happen with your app in terms of security. Because security has different layers, right? It's not only that there's like 2-3 things that you can do, but it's like a handful or even more topics that you should cover in terms of security. And it's just too complex for a single person or for a single team, and that's why I highly recommend you to get help via an expert. And if you would already get an idea of mobile security, I highly recommend you to take a look at the OWASP Mobile Security Project. It gives you an indication of things that can go wrong on a mobile app in terms of security, and something that you should really do because it's really complex and difficult topic. And with that, I would say thank you. Thanks for joining in today for my video about mobile testing mistakes to avoid. If you liked the video, it would be nice if you subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and I would also like to know from you what kind of mistakes you have made in the past when it comes to mobile testing and what you have learned about it. Thank you and bye bye.